welcome. If you can see or hear me, can you just say hi in the chat?
Yep.
Hey,
Yeah, we're live.
Thanks for everyone just sitting there, not saying anything while we're trying to navigate background. Appreciate it. You're really kind. Cheers, Ian. Cheers, Chris, Brian, Owen, Nino, Curtis, Christian. You can see how the workings behind this are all being figured out to bring this show to you. So I'm really excited today. We've kind of gone overkill because that's how we do it. As you've heard, we've got 7 world-class speakers that are going to be sharing some super impactful and inspiring content for you. And I'm really grateful today that we're going to have the wonderful Owen, who is the CEO and founder of Air Marketing, who's going to be co-hosting this. And also we're introducing Anthony Parker, who's the GM of EMEA for Mindtickle. And he's also going to be opening up the event with his first 7-minute talk. So because we've got so many speakers today, I'm keen that we're going to move through this process fairly rapidly. There's going to be a short conversation between Owen, myself, and Anthony. And then we're going to go into the speakers. And then there will be a panel that Owen will be leading. Feel free to ask questions in the chat. I'd love just to get some interaction going before we start. So just in response to the question, where are you dialing in from in the world right now? Just put your location in the chat just so we can share and see where we're always sitting in our pajamas while many of us are still working from home. So Owen, Anthony, thanks for joining. I'm really excited about this one because actually realizing, that there's a lot of synergies between us in terms of how things are coming together this year. But I know, Anthony, from your perspective, there's a really important market focus on EMEA and continuing to ramp up your business. But before we invite you on, Owen, I'd just love to hear a little perspective from you about why you're so excited about today's session.
Oh, I think first and foremost, we've never had as much content in one session before. So when you look at both the caliber, but also the sheer number of people we've got coming on today, I think that's a really, really exciting thing. And as you rightly said, there's a lot of synergy there. There's a number of people that we work with outside of Sales Confidence that are involved in the event today. And I think that's really exciting because it means that we're out and sharing our voice together. So now really, really excited about today's event for sure.
Awesome. No, I appreciate it. So Anthony, I know you like to crack the whip and deliver value straight away, but it is important that we introduce you to the audience. Yeah. And so I would love just to introduce, who is Mindtickle?
Yeah.
And what do you do?
Yeah.
And then why do you decide to partner and support the community before we kick off your talk today?
Yeah, no, first of all, thanks for inviting me on. I'm glad that we had that 5 minutes behind the scenes at the start, which is always good. Ken Blank is from Ohio. I know Ken Blank, so I'm going to say hello to him. I think that's the person furthest away. So good to see Ken on there. So no heckling me, Ken. So yeah, again, really pleased to be part of this community. Mindtickle, for those of you that don't know, we're a sales readiness platform that is focused on helping sales leaders, sales people, and organizations actually get results from sales training and actually get results and impact from what they're doing on a daily basis. So I won't steal the thunder of my own 7 minutes that's coming up, but essentially we are here to help salespeople be better, to earn more, and to spend less time out of the classroom. So I'm going to be looking for AEs and BDRs and I know there are BDRs and AEs on here who are obviously aspiring and people who want to be progressing with their career. I'm going to be looking for some feedback from them in the chat because really just want to make sure that this resonates. And the reason for joining up and partnering with yourself, James, and obviously with Owen, is wanting to be part of this sales confidence community, because I've seen what you've been doing over the past, how many years? I don't know how many years it is, mate, but 3 or 4 years. And in terms of live events, obviously seeing what you've been doing during COVID. And this is a great platform for myself, great platform for Mindtickle, and the opportunity for us to help with BDRs, AEs, managers, sales leaders, give a bit back, and obviously let people know what we do at the same time. No product stuff though.
Appreciate that, Anthony. I really appreciate that insight. And just as an FYI for everyone, in the chat, can you just say yes if you've experienced a sales confidence in-person event? And the reason why I say that, I actually had an email conversation today with our ongoing venue at the Andes Hotel, which is a 5-star hotel in Liverpool Street, that the doors will be opening. And I hope, this still seems pretty far out, but after waiting around for a year, it feels close, that come September, we'll all be getting back, those that are in London at the time, back into a room, and we can start having drinks around this. I appreciate it's St. Patrick's Day today, so if we were actually doing this in person, we'd have Guinness on tap. But those of you that are lucky enough to have a fridge of Guinness at home, let us know in the chat as well. So let us kick straight off then. I'm going to introduce Anthony. Anthony, do you want to get your slides ready while I'm introducing you?
Yeah.
Because I know that you've set yourself an ambitious task for this first session and your first sales confidence talk. One of the cool things about sales confidence is getting to know individuals like Anthony that really care about development. So those of you out there leading sales organizations, scaling SaaS teams, how much you invested in coaching, mentor, and developing others? And what I've seen from Anthony, that he's an individual that, having experience working across large enterprise organizations like Oracle, like Unify, Verizon, and also being a founding member of the Sales Enablement Society, and also a coach within the sales industry, he cares a lot about helping and developing people, and is a really great individual to spend time with. But for today, Anthony, this is your first sales confidence talk. Over to you.
Perfect. So I'm sharing. Last time I'll check, James, all I can see is my slides. As long as you can see that, I'm good to go.
It's working. You're all good.
Perfect. So as I changed the title of my presentation before, and I've got 7 minutes, so I will keep it very brief, and I'll try and make sure that there's some good takeaways for people who want to know more and cover that at the end. But essentially what I want to talk about is a message really for sales and revenue leaders, but also for the BDRs, AEs who are obviously ambitious. You're on here for a reason. You want to get better. So I want to really send a message to those sales and revenue leaders, also about how we can help them as well. Because one thing, and I mentioned it on my LinkedIn post, and I'll get onto it, is the one thing or the two things that keep sales and revenue leaders up at night are, one is sales productivity, obviously, how their teams are producing, and also when they're in hyper growth or fast growth mode, how quickly their new hires can be effective. Now, maybe that's not enough to understand why that keeps them up at night, but I'll put a bit more meat on the bones there. So hopefully you've all heard of the game Craps. It's played in Europe, played in the US. Essentially, Craps is a negative expectation game. What that means is it's impossible to beat over time. So the longer you stay, the more you will lose. It is mathematically impossible to beat Craps. So you either win quickly and get lucky and run, or you will lose. I haven't got time to get you guessing, but have a think about what your percentage chance of winning at Craps is. And the answer to that is 49.3%. So it's a mathematically negative expectation game. If you play it over a long enough time, you will definitely lose. It is impossible to beat. And 49.3%. That brings me on to what percentage of a forecast, and I'm not talking about just pipeline, I'm talking about committed pipeline, what percentage of forecast deals actually close? The answer is 46.4%. So in a quarter, it is actually probably better for the sales leader to go and play Craps than it is to bank on their committed pipeline. That is why at the end of a quarter, at the end of a year, the sales leaders who are really working on odds on average across BDB, working on odds worse than playing Craps, are not actually interested in how much training sales have completed. They're not interested in how many smiley faces were given by salespeople who had 2 days in that quarter out of the field. What they're interested in is, where's the pipeline gone and why is it all evaporated in the last 2 weeks? And that really comes down to sales readiness. And Mindtickle is all about sales readiness and helping those organizations to help their sales teams actually be ready and actually close business and retire quota. And that's all we care about. And that's all our customers care about. Ken Blanc is one of them. all they are interested in is helping their sales teams close business and retire quota. Now, the good news is salespeople don't actually want the stuff that is actually hurting them, which is generic training, tick box learning, being asked to complete courses. And this is where I'm going to ask, I can't personally see in the chat, but I will check afterwards. If you're a salesperson or a BDR and you agree or disagree, I'm really keen to get your comments. But what salespeople, we believe, and I believe, don't want is too much information at the wrong time, or brochureware messaging. None of that is helping them actually sell. And obviously this, I've gone for a future world state where we move from being bored on Zoom to being more bored in real life. Salespeople don't want this. What they want to do is be more effective. And if we look at what they want to sell more and they want to sell it faster, which is exactly the same as what the executive team want. So this is what fundamentally underpins the Mindtickle approach and what we believe in. And essentially that is about sales readiness. The difference is it's not just about being given the knowledge. It's not just about having a brochure. It's about having the knowledge, skills, the coaching interventions, the coaching feedback, and the ability to execute that actually helps those salespeople perform. I'm not going to get into too much about what that actually means today because I've only got 7 minutes, but essentially that's what we're talking about in terms of readiness versus learning and training on a generic basis just to tick a box. Final piece is, if you're looking at readiness and you're a Mindtickle customer and you're looking at doing this in the CRM, this is how you correlate the impact of your programs and initiatives, which don't need to take weeks and months or even hours. They can be short, sharp initiatives that have a real impact on revenue. And that's really what we care about. So in terms of how sales leaders working with sales enablement should go about this, in our opinion, is reject the low value metrics that are often spoke about. No one really cares about participation. Smiley faces on a quiz or net promoter score. I'm not saying that we should just do away with them entirely, although I wouldn't mind if we did. However, as part of that, we need to have far more focus, and we need to be focusing on, and this is sales enablement, helping the sales leaders, because this is where we get those early warnings about, are they ready? So readiness, not training. Anything that takes a salesperson away from talking with a prospect or a customer needs to be short, sharp, and tied to key initiatives and outcome obsessed. So what we're talking about is, if we're going to do something today, we want to do it as quickly as possible. Maybe it's via mobile, maybe it's via Zoom or whatever, but we need to get it over and done with and reinforced and actually having an outcome in the field that week or the next week at the latest. And in terms, I've got no idea how long this is going, but I don't think I've got to the 7 minutes yet. In terms of what needs to be done, we need the right people in these enablement roles, people like Ken Blank, InfoBlocks. These are the right people who are sales and outcome focused. They should have a seat at the same table as a CMO, the CRO, supporting sales leadership, working with sales leadership to help them achieve their objectives, and shift from tools and box ticking and focus on programs that have outcomes. And if there aren't any outcomes, then it shouldn't be supported, and it shouldn't really be taking salespeople out of the field. If you want to know more about this, and I've tried to keep this as a high level as possible, I was told not to do any slides, so I did 18. If you want to know more, post any feedback in the chat. Whilst others are talking, I'm happy to answer any. Connect with me on LinkedIn. As you can see, visit Mindtickle. And James, you would be disappointed if I didn't plug myself on Clubhouse. So there we go. That's it. Thanks all.
Well done.
There we go, mate. How long was
that? 6.5 minutes.
Oh, there we go.
Well done. So not only have you achieved a record for being the first person to come on first and do it in less than 7 minutes, but you've also achieved a record of doing 18 slides in 6 minutes and something, which I think is rocket speed. Thank you very much. That was great. And I think that I wrote down something that really resonated with me, which is about it being short, sharp, tied to key initiatives and outcome obsessed. I absolutely love that phrase. I think that's a really good way of looking at it. How did you find that? All right?
All good. I just didn't have a timer, so I didn't know how long I'd gone. So no, really, I'm enjoying it. If anyone has any questions, let me know. If not, I'll sit back and relax and watch the rest of the
Brilliant. Event. I'm sure there'll be questions. And guys, if you want to put questions, put it into the chat. I'm going to keep a list of questions, and I'll try and get as many of them to the panel as I can at the end of the session. So if I can get Marcus up on stage. Anthony, thank you very much. Well done. Really enjoyed that. Really valuable. Thank you so much. So guys, I'm going to introduce the next speaker. We're on a rocket ship trajectory with so many people. Welcome to the stage, Marcus. And for those of you that don't know Marcus, he's spent time at some absolute hyper growth tech organizations, spent time at Groupon, Google, GoCardless, and SalesLoft. And one of the most to the point and interesting introductions I've done at these events, because he's written in his bio that he's an average salesperson, a relatively okay sales leader, but I think his CV probably suggests something very different to that. Alumni of unicorns, future corns, and soon to be corns, which I think is a very interesting way of looking at it. And today, Marcus is the RVP now of SalesLoft. Is going to be talking about a toolkit for international expansion, which is a topic which I think is very topical and interesting right now. Welcome to the stage, Marcus. Are you ready to rock and roll?
Yeah, why not? Let's get into it, eh?
All right, well, I'm going to fire off and leave you to it, and James will be up after the 7 minutes.
Cool. All right, let's get the timing going. So, hi everybody. It's obviously an awkward way of always doing these things because I'm sitting in my nursery, having a chat with you guys while I've got someone sorting out the bathroom, but we'll kind of make it work. And thanks for the introduction. So I won't go into that. Look, realistically, what I want to talk today about was kind of the toolkit for how you take a market internationally. And as I said, I'm currently the RVP of SalesLoft, but I've spent 15 years in some way or another in every single company I've been in, taking what is a local sales program and taking it international. And so where we are is, I always start with what I believe is the universal truth. And I don't want to simplify it too much, but in its core, sales is like super, super easy. You're not going to sell something to somebody who doesn't want it. And the buyer behavior has changed so much in the last 10 to 15 years that actually you couldn't sell it to people if they don't actually need it. And by taking that universal truth of you have to sell something that is a problem, solve a problem for somebody, and they're going to want to buy it based on that. Taking what is a local market global is super, it is kind of much easier. I think furthermore to that, taking the kind of the last 12 months has changed a lot of the way in which we've thought about sales. And I think it used to be the norm where you might say, I need to shake your hand before a deal. I need to shake your hand after the deal. And actually that's no longer expected. So with the use of technology, with a little bit of creativity, a little bit of agility, actually a lot of what we can do is taking what is that local program, that local product, and actually globalizing it. And so really what I'll do over the next couple of minutes, I've got like 5 minutes left here, is kind of just really go through how I've thought about that. Now, last time I spoke at Sales Confidence was a few years back, and I left with kind of what I talk to myself about over and over again as a sales leader, which is like, where are we? Where do we want to be? And how do we want to get there? And so in that spirit for international growth, it's what market, when do we accelerate, and who do we do it with? And so look, where we are now is the toolkit. Okay, so we'll get into the nitty gritty of it. Now, the first thing you're going to want to do, step one, is sort your data out. Now, sorting your data out is realistically, you could do it in a few hours these days. And I don't take that lightly. You can. The first thing you want to do, go to Google, search public data platforms. Actually, what you're then able to do is actually get all your information gathered very, very quickly. What the outcome of that work is really just to establish a basic market intelligence matrix, which is what I do all the time when we're looking at which markets to go into. That basic market intelligence is simple. What is my addressable market? Bonus points for how fast is that growing? Bonus points if you can work out what your actionable market is within it. Realistically, you've got public data platforms like the National Statistics or Census or even World Bank, and it's all available for you to search. The second is overview of barriers for impact. So what are some of the things that you need to take into consideration when you're launching into market? That might be what language they operate in, what's the code of conduct when you go into it, or are there any regulations? Again, Google search, no red flags, continue. That's an opportunity for you. 3, what's the level of current competition? Now, we could speak at length about this, but typically it's going to be, do you need first mover advantage, or do you actually benefit from a bona fide competitor advantage? Now, typically, if you find that you need first mover advantage, I will always push for going a little bit scrappy. And actually going in scrappy means that you can talk to your customers early. You'll learn a lot more by talking to your customers than planning to talk to your customers. Fourth, similarity of consumer. This is easily the hardest part. You know, how similar is my ICP in a new market than what my ICP is in my current market? Now, this is the hardest part. Now, if you don't want to, go and get a membership for kind of something like Consumer International, there's actually a lot of exploratory research that you can go into. Things like Sage Pub is a really good example. But one thing I've fallen back into, and maybe this is my previous experience at a previous company, was actually falling back on Google Trends. So Google Trends is a really great way of assessing kind of your seasonal and parallel trends in products and search. Seeing that map align to each other will typically show that your ICP, your consumer, is also very similar, and you can take a lot from that. And fifth, what is most important of all of this is mapping out your existing portfolio. So which partners can I launch with, which customers I'm going to benefit from increasing my footprint, and actually very, very quickly what you're establishing is a really solid footprint. Now, once you've got all that, I think it's important to note that that's going to give you an indication of what market. As an example of this, and how I've used it before is, in a previous company, I guess the common wisdom was UK, France, Germany, Eastern Europe, XYZ. And actually, at the last company, we ended up in Estonia, Czech Republic, South Africa, Zimbabwe, Argentina, Brazil, Iceland. And by able to build that matrix, I was able to get the business to actually what was the 6th largest fintech in Europe within 18 months. And we actually hit profitability for the first time in 7 years, just by making sure that we have a market to push into. Now, once you have that, interest of time, is the next thing is, who do I do it with? And really, when it's who do I do it with, there's a few things we take into consideration. Now, I look at getting a scout group. That scout group allows me to go in that scrappy way of thinking about going to market. And there's 2 elements to this. One, the international language of business is English. And actually, so a lot of the times when we're launching into a new market, we don't need to do it with new hires. Actually, what you do is, for an example, I was running a sales team in Yorkshire, and we were trying to launch into Germany. Barry is not exactly Sven, but actually, because we were able to go into new wave technology, incubators, and media, where we knew that everyone spoke English, we were able to very quickly identify and ascertain how my first beachhead was going to launch. Now, we would never go much deeper than go into that in Germany. I would have to then hire local people or local language, but actually allowed me to substantiate and validate my launch before going any further. And actually having that really trusted advisor of a scout group as part of your toolkit would really allow me to build trust, because quite frankly, as we're going live into these markets, you're not going to get support from marketing. They're not going to want to go live. They don't want to go too wide. They're resource heavy. They don't have the resource to do it. Ops is not going to want to support you with more dashboards and reporting. They're not going to trust you. And legal, you're not going to be on the Christmas card list for very long if you're trying to get them to support you every time you launch into a new market. So by having this scout group that allows us to kind of be full 360, they're going to be your point of contact with your first customers. They're going to be your solutions engineers. They're going to be everything that you need to actually maximize that company. The most important thing is not worrying about local language necessarily, but worrying about a group of people that you can trust to get you and validate your go-to-market strategy. So what I wasn't able to touch on in this time, but I think it's important lastly, is once you go live, make sure that you know your North Star metric. So you've got to have, this is the country I want to go into based on my matrix. These are the people I'm going to go live with, and these are my first indicators of success. And if I know what my first indicator of success is, I can then repeat and repeat. I can then have repeatability, and I can actually go launch from there. So the toolkit really is build a matrix. Who's the market I want to go to? Use public domains. 2, build a team of trusted advisors that you know can do full 360. You want smart generalists. You don't want specialists just yet. And thirdly, make sure that you know what your key North Star metric is that validates those first indicators of success, allowing you to grow into it.
Awesome, Marcus. Thank you very much for sharing your wisdom. Just a question having gone through this cycle a few times now, has the landscape internationally, when you think of it, evolved since when you've done it, for example, with Go Cardless? Have you woken up at SalesLoft and gone, oh, that's different? Or, those frameworks you just walked through still are as effective?
No, like, honestly, James, I was doing the same. I launched an agency from Australia into Singapore, and we used pretty much exactly the same principle. We launched it into most of Southeast Asia. The reality is that there is that universal truth that says, what's my problem? What's the problem I'm trying to solve as a company? And as soon as you understand there's an actionable or addressable market somewhere, then you just go through that same process of raising awareness of your business, building pipeline, talking, understanding your consumer, and then working to a conversion or close. Obviously, the product and services you're selling will always differentiate, and the people you're selling it to will differentiate. But they're always that underlying truth. The second thing is, you're never going to get support from every other department to help you launch. So having to be able to do it with that nucleus is super, super important.
Love it, Marcus. That was really useful. Thanks for sharing. Great to have you back on the stage. Speak to you again soon. So next up, we've got the wonderful Andrei Sochala, who is the director of sales at Aircall. Andrei's been on an interesting journey because he started his career in finance, and he went on to launch his own business in training and professional development before being one of the earliest employees at Aircall back in 2016. Now, Aircall have now scaled across Europe, North America, and opened up an office in Australia, and expanded rapidly in the last almost 2 years that I've got to know Andrei. And he's got to oversee as director of sales this amazing growth and change. And I thought this was a really great choice of topic today that he's going to be covering. That also his CEO is going to be going into a deeper dive in various places around the globe. He's going to be covering making your sales comp plan a C-level priority. And we know how important and how influential compensation is to influencing the behaviors of your sales team. So Andrei, over to you. Good luck.
Thank you, James. Like always, lucky to be there, and welcome everyone. My name is Andrei Sochala, and I do lead the sales team here at Aircall. And for those of you who don't know Aircall yet, maybe we are the leading cloud-based phone system out there if you expect your phone system to be natively integrated with the CRM you're using. So last time I spoke to this sales confidence community event was nearly a year and a half years ago, if I'm not mistaken. And since then, the Aircall sales team has more than doubled in size to close than 100, I think a bit more than 100 reps today. So we've been quite busy. But a year and a half ago was also the start of a project which, if I'm completely honest with you, I did not expect would take such importance across the company. And this is the change of our sales compensation plan. So changing a sales comp plan can be a side project for someone in sales ops, along with a bit of sales leadership guidance here. Or it can become something bigger and much more strategic for the company. And it's the latter that I want to be talking about today. So we basically wanted our CFO, our Chief People Officer, our COO, and our CEO to be our partners in building this plan. So we were ready to trade off time. It took nearly a year to roll it out in order to get it right. Unfortunately, I won't have time to go into details of the exact comp plan during this talk, but I wanted to run through some of the key learnings over the last year of the project. So when talking with our CFO, we reviewed all the metrics that could be measured internally, and we scored them against the key priorities of our current investors and potential future investors. Being a full SaaS company, we did, of course, talk about MRR, about contract commitment, what's better between monthly, 12 months, 2 years, what is being done across the other companies, payment frequency, should we go annual upfront as much as possible, quarterly payments is good, what about monthly, and maybe also consider gross margin, for instance. We often forget about this one here in sales. We really had to ask basically ourselves, what's the real value for the company of each pound of revenue signed in those specific terms? we wanted to make the sales reps focus on what matters the most for the company. So lesson number 1, use your sales comp plan to consolidate your company's financial metrics by having the reps focus on the right things. Then, when talking with our chief people officer, we wanted to guarantee that Aircall was in a great position to attract and retain the best talents out there. So that means having the right OTEs in place. And this is a difficult one here, as it's so easy to fall into what I would call kind of like the OTE quota size arms race. And I'm sure you know what I'm talking about here. There are a couple of benchmarks out there, but how much can you really trust them? So we decided to leverage our VC investors and have them run a survey in their own portfolio companies to get a better feel of the market. No need to lie at this point. To be aligned with the recruitment strategy that we had agreed on, we took the decision to pay slightly over the market, but to make sure we weren't paying the most in order to have candidates who don't only pick us for the money. So lesson number 2, use your sales comp plan to attract and retain the best talents out there. Then, when talking to our COO and our CEO, who are both basically the founders of the company, we wanted something bold and ambitious. This has always been part of the company DNA and the culture. So of course, we discussed accelerators, we discussed uncapped quota, we discussed spiffs, challenges, but also we wanted the sales comp plan to be aligned with the international expansion plans for 2021. At the stage we are in right now, this is a hot topic for us in this year. So the sales comp plan had to be adaptable to each market we will be focusing on and allow the scrappiness needed at the beginning in some new markets. We had to review the split between base and variable to take into account what fits in the local labor market. So lesson number 3, use your sales comp plan to motivate above and beyond and make it adaptable for international expansion plans. Throughout the whole process, and there was many back and forth, we wanted to make this project as playful as possible. So what really helped is to keep the interest, was to have simulators or models, basically a Google sheet, where you could have the key stakeholders play on the different version of the model as we were moving along the project and getting to the final version. Now, within those 7 minutes, I only had time to share with you the behind-the-scenes discussions of this new sales comp plan project. But if you are interested in actually seeing it in details, the actual structure we went for, the numbers, the region differences, we thought we would give back to the sales communities across Europe by sharing all of it during 30 to 60 minute sessions. And that's our founder and COO, who was a huge advocate for the project, who will start a European roadshow basically in April to present our new comp plan in details. As I said, the point is to give back to the community by saving you precious time if you are looking to change your comp plan in the future. And that's all for me. Thanks. Hey, Owen.
Great work. That was awesome. Thank you, Andrei. Well done. You're another one bang on time today. People have been very well behaved. Love it.
Okay,
Thank you. And I love the fact that you guys are willing to share. That's brilliant. So it's going live. When are you going live with the roadshow? Did you say then? When does it go?
April. We basically want to prepare this properly. We're probably going to go all in. There's not too much to change in terms of transparency here. There's no big secret. Like always in sales, it's better to share and then have even more feedback on it. But clearly, yeah, that would start in April. A bit of communication, a bit of stuff to do on the brand and marketing side. But we'll be ready then.
I love it, and I love the fact that you've used what is ultimately a really valuable tool to drive all elements of business. Is about performance and the people, and it's not just there because it has to be there. I think that's an opportunity missed in many organizations. So that's fantastic. And check out in the poll, guys, for those of you watching in the chat, James has put a poll up around the comp plan. If you want to know more as well, you can log something down there. Andrei, thanks very much. Speak to you soon. Appreciate it.
Thank you all. Good luck, Richard.
There he is. He's come up nice and ready and on time. So I get the pleasure of introducing the fantastic. If you've been to one of these events before, he doesn't need an introduction. But I'll do it for the few people that haven't been before. So Richard is the VP of Sales at Refract. Wins the award today for one of the best talk titles I've read or seen in a long time. So he's talking today, Richard's Kitchen Nightmares: Why Winnable Deals Are Being Lost by Your Remote Reps on the Kitchen Table. So that's a really exciting thing to hear about today. So Richard is the co-founder at Refract, co-founded in 2015. If you don't know Refract, they're designed to help companies assess their sales conversations and identify their strengths and weaknesses so that they can optimize their sales strategies. And they work to transform their clients' company culture, reduce error in conversation, and better understand and integrate the science of success in sales conversations. Richard, welcome aboard. How are you?
Yeah, cheers, Owen. I've just forgot to bring my chef's hat today for the talk, but yeah, looking forward to sharing more.
Well, mate, the stage is all yours. Off you go.
Thanks, everyone. I'm gonna have a go at sharing my my screen here. So hopefully we can all see Richard's Kitchen Nightmares. So Richard Smith. I'm the VP of Sales here at Refract. Although you can call me Richard Ramsey today, I'm going to be talking to you about why winnable deals are being lost by your remote reps on the kitchen table. I've promised not to swear as much as Gordon to James, though, so don't worry about that. I'll keep this quite PG. Here's the reality. A year ago, the sales floor as we know it was lost overnight. Reps were now working deals literally from their kitchen tables. We no longer were able to overhear how their calls and demos were going in the banks of desks next to us in the office. We no longer had the opportunity of those awkward conversations as they walked out of the meeting rooms with laptops in hand, and they would give us a 30-second sort of summary as to how that inbound demo just went. And no, all of that has gone, and we lack that visibility as to what is actually happening with our remote reps at home. And all the while, we're sat there as sales leaders looking in the CRM every single day, and we're seeing deals being switched to close lost. We're seeing opportunities stuck at the same stage of the pipeline for weeks on end. Yet it was only a month ago that our reps were telling us what a great initial discovery conversation they had with that opportunity. It was only a month ago that opportunity looked like it had so much traction and the brakes have been put on it. Thankfully here at Refract, we analyze literally tens of thousands of calls, demos, virtual meetings every single month. And through that analysis of those conversations, we've been able to identify 10 reasons why your winnable deals are being lost by your remote reps today. And I'm going to profile 3 of those today. If you stick around to the end, we'll actually share some access to get access to the other 7. So here's the key thing I want to put across here is that I know that some of these will sound familiar, but I can promise you that today, this week, maybe even as this event is taking place right now, your reps are losing deals for these exact reasons. So the first one I wanted to choose to be profiled was need to be liked. And the reason I chose this one is that because data supports that need to be liked is the biggest sales DNA predictor of success. In fact, Objective Management Group, who assess over 2 million salespeople, identified that 86% of the weakest sales performers have a need to be liked by their prospects. Yet only 11% of top sales performers do have this desire. The reason why so many deals are getting lost to no decision is due to a need to be liked. Sales reps who suffer from this will much quickly lean into having nice, friendly conversations with prospects where they refrain from asking those really tough questions which truly move the needle. As such, prospects come away from those conversations with it cemented in their head that actually the current state is perfectly sensible to stick with. Why would I want to move? People who have a need to be liked don't ask questions around personal motivation, personal impact, because they're worried it might upset the prospect. They're worried it might make the prospect emotional. Yet the reason that people buy from us is because they get emotional. They're not happy with how they're doing things right now. And finally, salespeople who are suffering from a need to be liked, why they're losing these winnable deals. They've been warped to believe that this phrase, people buy from people, means people buy from people they like. It can't be further from the truth. People buy from people they trust. And if you ask any prospect why they bought from the salesperson, it was because they say that salesperson truly understood my world. They asked me the questions that revealed problems I didn't realize I had, and that's why they bought. The second reason that we're going to profile as to why your reps are losing winnable deals they should be winning is that they're missing the emotive nuggets in the sales conversations they're having. We see at Refract here sales calls sometimes full to the brim of emotive nuggets, but we also see in those same sales calls, salespeople failing to capitalize on those emotive nuggets. Emotive nuggets are the specific keywords and phrases that indicate pain, problems, and opportunities. I think if you identify these in your calls, these are the keys to getting deal velocity and helping to accelerate deals along the pipeline. Examples of these may include words like frustrated, challenging, tricky, or even phrases like not as much as we would like. Behind these emotive nuggets are the keys to success. Yet what we often see is salespeople struggling to actively listen to pick up on these words, or if they do hear them, they fail to uncover what's really actually behind those words and phrases. In fact, it was just this morning I was actually in Refract, and Refract profiled to me a sales conversation where two of these words were actually profiled in the call. And you can see here the prospect mentioned the word challenging twice. Yet, despite that, the sales rep failed to actually understand what is it that's challenging? What does that mean? What's the impact on that? This was a great example of a winnable deal that was starting to go south, but actually able to pick up on this and react to it really quickly. And that's a very salient point because what we tend to see within our own sales team and our customers is that it's never too late to go back when you miss these emotive nuggets. If you replay your conversations, if you flag where these are being said in your sales calls, we've got evidence of where salespeople have picked the phone back up to their prospects, admitted that they didn't do a good job of picking up on those nuggets the first time around, and it's actually led to deals. It's actually helped them rescue the winnable deals that they were about to lose. And finally, weak next steps. And I know you're thinking, Richard, it's so obvious. You're going to tell me salespeople who don't set times and dates for the next call. Well, actually, that's not what we see when salespeople lose winnable deals. It's not for those reasons. It's actually much more complex than that. It's actually salespeople who are not asking those killer next step questions that ensure that they themselves understand the steps to close. Too often we see in sales calls, salespeople asking questions at the end of their demos, discovery calls with things such as, so Mr. Prospect, where should we go next? Or what happens from here? Or what would you like to do next? These are terrible questions to ask because ultimately, especially when selling to inexperienced buyers, the buyers are asking or don't know how to buy. They've never bought from that type of product or service before. So the prospect's saying things in response such as, like, let me go away and speak with my boss. Let me go away and digest this, and maybe let's catch up in a couple of weeks' time. The reality is the prospect doesn't know what to do next. Winnable deals are being lost because your salespeople are not controlling the next steps. They're not prescribing what should happen next, who should get involved in those conversations, what is the next phase in moving this deal along. As I mentioned, there is only time to profile 3 of these reasons, but you can see the other 7 that we've identified. And if you want to find out more about every other reason that we've profiled here, about why your reps are losing winnable deals around the kitchen table today, then if you go to the URL refract.ai/nightmares, you can access a free cheat sheet which will go into each of those 10 reasons in more detail, and importantly, exactly what you can do to solve them and galvanize and save more deals from going south. So yeah, refract.ai/nightmares for that free cheat sheet. And yeah, look forward to connecting with you on LinkedIn if you want to find out more.
Richard, absolutely love the creativity and the positioning, and it's always nice to see the data points that you've got access to. But kudos to you because you've been up on stage a few times in the last few years, and I appreciate that you're sharing insights that no matter what access to technology you've got, you can actually implement into your sales organization. So thanks a million, mate, and we'll see you on the panel.
Appreciate it. Thanks very much.
So if anyone notices, can you see this light I've got in the background? It was supposed to take over the whole background, but it's not quite worked the way that I wanted. Anyway, Lauren, so what's really cool now about sales confidence, and some of you might be sitting there thinking about how do we pick these people? Honestly, I'm on the back channels all the time, understanding who's doing what in this market. I'm like the oracle of information. I share some things out there, but not all. And Lauren was one of those individuals. When she flew in from the US and landed in the UK, she already made a major impact and was on one of our physical stages. And now she's evolved her role and gone through a bit of a journey to get to her new role as Director of Sales at Forecast. And today she's going to be talking about building your first sales organization. I appreciate we've got a mixed audience of those super tenured, but I know all of you always have to start again. That's the bugger in this job. As soon as you do well, depending what's going on in the environment, you're looking at the next opportunity, the new project, the new start. So Lauren's going to be talking about some of those war stories. She's got a very successful tenure in go-to-market strategy, having been responsible for building sales teams at the likes of Salesforce, Box, and most recently, why did I just forget that one? Trip Actions. Because we haven't been doing much traveling recently, that's why. So I'm super glad that she's come back and she's going to share some of her war stories and insights on building a sales org. So Lauren, thanks for getting back involved again.
Yeah, thank you, James, and glad to be here. As James mentioned, I've a glutton for punishment and love to build sales orgs. So I've built orgs at Box, at Trip Actions, and now most recently Forecasts. And there's lots of areas you can go into, right? But I think there's kind of 4 key areas to think about when you're building out that first sales organization. One, that go-to-market strategy, very much done in partnership with marketing. Secondly, the tech stack. What tools are you going to give to your team to equip them to actually be successful? The methodology, right? I mean, salespeople love a little bit of structure, nothing too rigid, but how do we think about the methodology and the appropriate structure for them? And then last but not least, the people, right? That's the org is truly made of. So jumping right into kind of the go-to-market strategy, I hit on the fact that it's absolutely in conjunction with your marketing team, with your marketing partner. But it's really about thinking about your ideal customer profile. Which core regions do you want to sell into? Which core industries are you going to sell into? Personas, who are your actual buyers? Is it finance? Is it operations? And how do you actually build that messaging with them and, ultimately for them? This is why marketing is so important, that you're doing it together. I share a story from Trip Actions. I definitely sat down with my VP of EMEA marketing, and we built out this beautiful plan. Here are the core countries we're going to sell into, to where we have product market fit. Here are the industries. And then I arrived in London, and leads are coming left, right, and center, but they're outside of the go-to-market strategy that we had set. But every person loves a good inbound lead, and we got distracted in the beginning. So it's really easy to take advantage of the leads, but you build that strategy for a reason. So stay focused, because it's going to allow you to really accelerate and ultimately build the model for future success. Secondly, thinking about the tech stack. I'm sure this group is very well versed in the ultimate tech stack. But when I think about 4 core areas. There are a million other things that you can think about too. But first and foremost, where do you start from an account and contact acquisition? You want your reps to actually walk into something to do. I was actually laughing the other day. BT dropped off a giant purple phone book. I had no idea that they actually still printed those, but back in the day, that's how salespeople got started and going after their account list. I am not giving anyone a phone book. I want to give them actually accounts built out ideally in Salesforce for them to go after. Secondly, LinkedIn Sales Nav, that's really a go-to. And then obviously a CRM. And then last but not least, your ultimate sales automation platform. So whether that's SalesLoft, Outreach, Jiminy, etc. Thirdly, I hit on talking about methodologies, and I think salespeople love just a decent swim lane, right? Not too much structure, not too rigid, but just a nice area of like, this is what I need to do in order to be successful at your organization. The first thing you think about is the qualification criteria for the beginning part of the sales cycle, whether that's BANT, budget, authority, need, time frame, whether it's ANAM, authority, need, urgency, money. We use PACT here at forecasts, problems, authority, consequences, target profile. They all kind of do the same thing. And so it's just determining what makes the most sense for the early conversations in your sales cycle. And then there's a layer deeper. Then there's the actual discovery qualification and the discovery kind of methodology. We've heard of Sandler, of Challenger. I think it's MedPick, etc. And whatever works best for your organization. And I think a really key learning is here at Forecast we had a discovery kind of methodology we were using early on. And just last week, we rolled out MedPick. We've had an opportunity to sell for almost a year now and realize we're starting to go up segment. The deals are getting more are bigger, are getting more sophisticated. And in order to really be successful, we need to make sure we're drilling into metrics. We've identified that paper process, where everybody has a tendency to get stuck. So MedPick is really going to work well for us. However, I think the biggest takeaway is we implemented something initially and we adapted. And just because you implement something early on doesn't mean you shouldn't, and actually you should go back and make changes as your sales cycle changes as well. And then lastly, the most important piece, the people, right? I just went through a training where we read a bit of Who, which just talks about creating kind of the ultimate scorecard to encourage you to hire, a talent, and all of those top performance. And how do you actually build out that hiring profile? So there's a strong skill set alignment, but also cultural alignment. Thinking about it a layer deeper. When you bring those people on, how are you actually going to coach them and make sure they are successful? And one of my favorite things to do is actually jump in and do the job to understand, what does a sales cycle actually look like? How are you going to coach? I feel like you have to actually experience a sales cycle in your org, especially when you're building it from kind of the get-go. I think, it's just really important to understand kind of all the key points that we hit on before around industry, buyer personas. Is your messaging resonating? You're really going to learn that if you're doing the job, with your team. So kind of like I said, in conclusion, 4 key takeaways about building out your sales org. 1, that go-to-market strategy. 2, that tech stack to actually, equip your sales team to be successful. Thinking about that methodology and what you guys want, what kind of structure you want to put in place for your team. And then the ultimate key is, hiring the right people. So you actually have a sales org to build.
Thanks, Lauren. That was fantastic. So thank you. So Lauren, hopefully she can still hear me. I did have a question for her, but I'll save that for the chat at the end. So can I just get Matt up onto the stage if you're ready to go, Matt? If you can crack on up to the stage. Hey, there he is. Welcome up. So very happy to be introducing Matt to you. Matt Tuson, who's the Chief Commercial Officer at Sabio. So Matt's talk today is a story of striving for excellence. He is 25 years in plus track record of driving major sales growth for several cloud organizations, including Salesforce, New Voice Media, Right Now Technologies, and Conga. Has a really simple belief that we should all be trying to better ourselves by striving for excellence. So it's no surprise that he's picking that topic to present on today. James is coming up to the stage to drive the presentations as well. By the looks of things, we've got some slides ready to go. Matt, you ready and raring to go?
I'm all ready.
That sounds good to me. I'm going to leave the stage. It's all yours. Over to you.
Thank you. Hi, can you all hear me good? Great. Right, let's go to the first slide. Very simply, striving for excellence is something, that is possible for everybody, right? It really is the way I believe that we should all be trying to improve ourselves every single day. And if you can improve yourself even marginally, you'll be a better person. Whether that's in work or out of work, I think is very, very important that you just truly start striving for excellence. And if you go to the next slide, it doesn't matter whether you are Cristiano Ronaldo or Lionel Messi, who obviously got to amazing results, whether you are Usain Bolt, who ran a world record, whether you got a master's, and really did well at school, or Jennifer Kelly, who I don't know, who became salesperson of the year, or then there's myself, that's just really tried to improve and continually improve. Next slide. But in doing that, you meet so many people on the journey. You really try and get to a point where you have so many coaches that they're all supporting you and giving you different ideas and different things, and try this and try that, whether it's in a personal life or your professional life. But trying to be better than you were the day before is a simple thought and a simple idea. But then imagine a world if you could create a development culture that really drove the whole business to strive for excellence and then thrive as a result. I've had a very successful career, and I've been very fortunate to meet a number of people. I'm working for the likes of Right Now and Salesforce. You meet some amazing people. But Guy Dubois, chairman of New Voice Media, sat down with me one day and said, "Matt, you're doing a great job, but let's start thinking how you can provide more consistency in the results." And we continued the discussion, and we spoke about who was accountable for what and how we get predictable as a business. And we were looking at Predictable Revenue by Aaron Spear, and we just tried to really think about that sort of process. And as a result of that, it became as simple as APC: accountability, predictability, consistency, the way you run a business. The first and foremost thing of any sales organization, you must make sure your salespeople are accountable, your pre-sales people are accountable, your BDRs are accountable. They know what needs to be done in a business. And it's not just the lag indicator, the booking. It's the lead indicators as well, the activity, the pipeline generation. As Lauren's already said, you need the right set of tools to support you, to ensure that you're data-driven. But that's not enough, right? To be able to do this, to see improvements, to see those marginal gains, you have to drive a weekly cadence. And in doing that, you have to commit to it. It's not good enough for the leader to do it once and just not doing it one week because I'm busy. You've got to commit to it, make it into your corporate calendar, and really drive that weekly cadence. The important part, and again, Lauren's already mentioned this about sales methodology, but sales methodology is not just, medic, whatever, Scotsman, medpic. It's actually the way you create your business to become a coaching framework. And whether it is medpic or whatever, I've typically created methodologies to align with the business and the culture of the business. And I'll show you Sabio way on the next slide, which really drives Sabio as part of the culture of our business. And this is the 5th time I've done this type of thing. But you've got to live it in every part of your business. And the reason behind that is if you truly drive it as part of your business, you can train people on it. And you can then create a competency scorecard against it. And that competency scorecard will look at both the art and the science of selling. The art being the good stuff, the science being the why now. Have you got the order of events? Do you know the go live date? Have you changed the emotions from somebody being sold to somebody being, helping them buy? And if you can change that state of thought process in your buyer, you will more likely be successful. So you create it as a project using your order of events based on the go live date and working back through dates and gates. So you've got people accountable, and then you've got the predictability coming from a coaching framework. That will then drive a consistency of performance. Because your business is working in one simple way, utilizing your sales methodology, the individual and breadth of performance should grow because you're the continued training and motion behind it. You've created this development culture where people are wanting to learn, and you've hired the right talent at the start that have the intelligence to learn, and they still have that growth mindset. It'll increase your forecast accuracy if you get more deal control. And deal control is incredibly important, more important than ever when we're in this world of, kitchen desktop selling. And what it really does do is creates a growth engine for business, but more importantly, a great place to work. So just in summary, striving for excellence. Make sure they're accountable. Activity pipeline bookings from a sales perspective, but obviously BDRs, pre-sales, all have different accountability, and make sure that you know what it is. Have the tools to be data-driven. I personally, I love Clary, I love Avnio, I love Salesforce. Make sure that you have the right tools in place so you can truly understand where the marginal gains are coming from and the conversion ratios by individual. You set up your coaching framework and ensure that you have your deals desk. The way you approach a forecast call is about supporting the salesperson, not just getting a number. Help him understand where he's got bruises in the deal, where he needs to fix things to make sure his chance of successes are going to be higher. Live the cadence, and if you don't do it, you have to live that cadence. And then complete the competency scorecard so people can see the progression in their careers and how they're improving both in the science and the art side of selling. If you live it, you'll then enjoy the results. Accountability, predictability, consistency drives a sales organization way forward, and the CEO and your investors will love it. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. Appreciate it. Appreciate your efforts. We'll bring you back onto the panel discussion in a mo.
You go,
David.
How you doing?
I'm all right. Well, look, this is a long time in the waiting, as we know, even for today. Held you up as our last speaker, our final speaker. You've obviously been on a mega trajectory in your career, but also with Databricks significantly. And I love and look forward to understanding the insight you're going to be able to share in terms of positioning the different buckets you've had to focus on building this amazing engine for Databricks and how you're spending all that money. So I'm just going to allow you to kick off and wrap up our final event. Thanks very much.
Sure. Good to meet you. I'm Dave Wyatt. I'm the GM for EMEA for Databricks. I haven't got any slides at all. I've chosen not to do that. I think we all see enough slides in our lives. And I'm going to let you escape some slides for 7 minutes, hopefully. Look, I often get asked the question about startups and how you accelerate growth and how you go and build startups and the journey you go on. I was responsible for the EMEA division of MuleSoft, and we took it to IPO and through that trajectory, which was an awesome trip. And the journey at Databricks, again, has been an amazing trip. I remember the first day starting in my bedroom thinking, right, what do we do now? Let's do it again and do it again, but better. And Databricks is on an amazing velocity. It's an amazing company to be at. In fact, we are looking to be, one of the fastest ever growing subscription enterprise software companies in history and leading in data and AI in the way we do today. So super exciting journey. But if we go back to Datadog, which is what people ask about, is Datadog is generally You kind of start with nothing, but you've got everything that's been done in the US, which is kind of in its infancy at that stage. Series B, Series C stage is very early in their definition in the market. They've not defined the market proposition in full. They're going to market. They've got some customers, but they're really getting some pace up and entering the EMEA region. And I had to start with a plan. And if you're in a fast-growing software company, you don't want to spend too much time on the plan. If you're spending a bunch of time in the plan, then the reality is you're not going fast enough already. So first thing you got to do is hire. And hiring is the number one job. I still say it's the number one job for every employee in Databricks, and I did the same at Mule and every company prior. I mean, literally, it is the number one job. So you need to hire the best in class. And then with that, you build a culture around it. And then you maintain that bar as you continue to hire. Everybody says it, but that intentionality to draw that capability is absolutely critical. Then it's all about velocity, right? So creating velocity around your products, around your brand. And that is, I go for guerrilla marketing. Go wild, get the best marketing person you can get and go wild and market like guerrilla style. But also align that to a targeted strategy after the accounts and the verticals you're after. So really take your proposition into the unique area, guerrilla market, to drive your brand out. I have this mayor strategy. I think the deputy mayor's opened a couple of my offices in the past when I've had like 3 people there. And like Google opened a new office in London, like next to that it's Databricks for 3 people, but it's okay. Make as much noise, be bold. But the other thing is, like, you are about creating demand. You're creating the brand, you're creating the value, and then you're creating a target-focused energy to where you want to get the velocity to go to. Next thing is your playbook. So define your playbook. There's already a playbook that's already been originated in the US, right? I'm just talking about launching EMEA here, but any startup, you define your playbook. That playbook has got to be something that's going to resonate, it's going to draw value, and something that you can make repeatable. And the only way you make that playbook really work, and it's going to be super valuable, is because it's going to create the gravity around it to make it happen again. The playbook is something that's going to be of value. It's going to be something that's unique. It's going to be something that people are going to talk about. It's going to be something that's going to have impact. The playbook is going to be something that is defining your methodology of how you run and how you go to market and how you drive penetration with your customers and how you drive successful outcomes. That playbook will be refined, and when it's working because you get that one big lighthouse deal that becomes repeatable. That lighthouse deal is what gives everyone confidence. That lighthouse deal is what everybody refers to as the deal of how it's done right. You make that repeatable, you make that usable, and then you're in the next bucket, which is repeatability. So this is bucket number 4. So you've done plan and hire, you've done velocity, you've done playbook. Now you want to make it repeatable. You want to make this thing grow. You're in hyper growth. You want to make it happen. One is partners. You've got this playbook that you can take to your partners, but also geographies. How do you go into the right geographies? First lesson is use the data. Don't go to the geographies that everyone else went to because you think they're the right geographies. Automatically in the UK, you go to France and Germany because they're large markets. Go where the gravity is going. The gravity will come to where your playbook's most effective, and then hone into that gravity to focus your business. You will find that you'll get the best bang for your buck to get the highest growth trajectory. Then you'll tune into those larger markets where you're going to get the most success. For instance, we got a lot more penetration early at Databricks because cloud was early in its adoption phase. So actually, we started in the UK, but we ended up going to the Nordics earlier, not in physical space, but actually we ended up doing a lot of business in the Nordics because there was a high cloud presence there. We didn't necessarily go to France, Germany, etc., etc. However, we're established in France, Germany, Nordics, everywhere now, right? So like super growth, have expanded, but we followed the gravity and drove the opportunity into the gravity and then expanded with pace. And next thing is to make that happen, to make repeatability to work well, you've got to make sure that everybody understands how to get their playbook inherent in their DNA. So once you get your playbook is once you get the confidence. And to get the confidence, you need the context. You get the context from doing it and being successful. We are all, us salespeople, are all experiential learners. We don't sit down reading books for hours because we can't, because we're insanely mad on being successful and being leaders with vision and making outcomes happen and beating everybody else at doing it. That's what we want to do because we're experiential learners. So make it experiential. Coach, mentor, create a culture that shares best practices. 5th bucket is being data-driven. once you've got this machine that you've repeated these playbooks and made it super successful, you're hiring these A players, you're winning every time. You want to make sure that you're operationalizing your business to really hone in on where you drive multiple successes, fine-tuning what you're doing, making the drive even better, faster, and harder into your business. And that is being data-driven and understanding and analyzing your business to make decisions more effective. That's really understanding your pipeline, your deals, trends, plays, industries, territories. How do you define your business and go into that wedge in the market to make sure every time you tweak it, you get 10x multiplier. Last thing is, give something back. You're winning, you're on top of the world, you're the best at hiring, you're the best at revenue, you're the best at everything. Everybody wants to see what you're doing. Take those best practices, make them repeatable, and share them with everybody. And that's my 7 minutes.
Here I am. So it just takes a second when you caught me off guard right at the end, mate. Great energy on that, David. That was fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. I think another one in just under the 7 minutes, bang on time. We've had a very well-behaved panel today. Thank you very much. Can I just ask, we're going to go on to the panel in just a second. Before I bring some of the others onto the stage, I'm going to ask you to go in a minute, David. Just a quick question. Just keen to understand your commentary around, you talked about if you're still planning, get going as fast as you can. Don't spend too long in that planning stage. And I think if we go back to Marcus, he talked about the scout group and getting in early and getting it done. Yeah. Whereas we've had some talk today from Andrei around really taking the time to get something right and get something, to the right level before you go live with it. Where do you think the compromise is of that? So what are the types of things you want to compromise in and go sooner? And what are the types of things you want to take your time over?
You never compromise on hiring or talent. Like, every person you hire has got to be better than the last person. And my ultimate objective is to be the dumbest person in the room. And that's not that hard anyway, but ultimately you've got to get right. Seriously, I sit in Databricks in awe, knowing that I'm top 1%. And that's I don't really make compromises from candid. I literally, I've probably got, my mom had like severe OCD, and it did something to me that created OCD with me. I don't make compromises candidly. And if you do, then there's no need to. There's no need to. The thing you got to do is prioritize, right? So if you're thinking about, if that's what you're going towards, is that, like, if the three most important things are, like, how people, like, having the right people in your, are you hiring them? Are you growing them? Are you making them better all the time? And you've got continuous improvement. Second thing is, your product, your revenue stream, are you driving into the market? And then the third thing is, like, is your go-to-market, is it absolutely nailed on? Are you doing the right things? Are you following us in the right industry? And you got the right messaging, hitting the right verticals? Have you got them nailed on? And are you being really intentional towards that? And if you compromise on those things, then you're going to hurt. But, like, be super focused on them. Where you can compromise is where things are outside of that. Because some things you're going to have to say no to.
Yeah. That's brilliant. Thank you. Awesome answer. Can I just ask you to dive off? I'll call you back on in a minute if that's okay. But I'm going to ask Anthony, Marcus, Andrei, and Richard to join us. We've got a capacity of 5 people up on stage at a time. And rather than we've only got roughly 15 minutes, rather than having a panel with lots of questions, I'm just going to do one question, go around everybody, and we'll assess and see where we are at that point. I'm going to put you on the spot. Marcus, you came up first. So putting you on the spot, I'm looking for your one key takeaway from another speaker's talk today. What's the note that you wrote down, or something you can take away from somebody else today that stood out for you?
Oh, I wish I paid more attention now, don't I?
No pressure.
I think it was the first one, just in relation to, I guess, the gamble that we currently have, and kind of just getting a little bit more control over forecasting, right? I think it's super, super important that we have that, because at the moment, just forecasting for me in where the growth trajectory that SalesLoft is on is, the more I know and can confirm and qualify how much revenue we're going to get in the bank, it's going to be easier for me to kind of influence who I need to influence internally to help my business grow, just my component of my business grow.
Brilliant. Anthony, I'll come to you next. Key takeaway from another speaker today.
Yeah, I think I'll pick an easy one for me. Not that I wasn't concentrating on everyone else's, but Matt Tuson spoke a lot about mindset. And I think for me, a lot of the success that individuals have with BDRs AEs, managers, sales leaders. It's all about mindset. So there was more than a couple of good key takeaways from there. But I thought the whole event was really good.
Brilliant. Andrei, same question to you.
Yeah, I think I'll go with the last thing that David said regarding where you don't compromise on time, which is recruitment. And I think this has been so applicable, and it's something I've always thought to myself so much. Like when you've run through 10 candidates and you're like, okay, this is 10 times X number of minutes wasted. You feel like it because you're not going to recruit them, and then you're on your next candidate, and then you actually find them, and you're happy to have actually wasted those minutes. And it's so true. I mean, and it sounds every time you do an interview where you know at the end it's not going to work. Yeah. You have this feeling, but at the end you never should compromise on recruitment, time on recruitment.
Yeah, fantastic point. Richard's not joined the stage just yet. Hopefully you will in a minute. So I'm just gonna that went quickly, so I just want to fire one other question at you guys. Anthony, back to your talk, if that's all right. You talked about readiness and how sales reps don't want to be, have the chalk and talk and loads of training. They want really relevant information, short, sharp. That point I pulled on before, short, sharp. Tied to key initiatives and outcome obsessed. Why do we think organizations haven't caught up with that then? Why are organizations still doing the chalk and talk long training sessions and tick box exercises, in your opinion?
So yes, good question. And I think that a lot of companies are now catching on. So if you search on LinkedIn now for sales readiness, there's about 350,000 people with sales readiness in their LinkedIn profile in some way. Sales enablement, 550,000 people. I think there's a shift now that's been happening. I've been in this space for 5 years. 5 years ago, it was an evangelical sale. You had to persuade people. Now, the 40% who aren't going to get on the bus are going to get left behind. And then they are going to be seen as a cost center. They are going to be frankly, be furloughed, because these are the individuals that are seen as a cost, not a profit. So for me, it's now most of the organizations that are on board and getting this are going to leave their competitors behind. So I genuinely feel that there is a shift, and the good news is that most people in the roles, sales enablement, sales readiness, sales effectiveness, want to look at outcomes. It's just in the past, it's been how many you have to buy 3 or 4 tools to do each little piece. So it's been more difficult. Now we've got the platforms like Mindtickle and others, where you can actually do all of it in one platform and connect the data. It's far more easy, and there's far less excuses, and that means it's far better and more engaging for salespeople, because no one's, to the point, I think it was Marcus earlier, nobody's reading books and manuals anymore. They're going on YouTube and watching a minute video, and they're going and doing something, and that's the approach that we need in sales readiness, and that's how we can actually start getting results.
That's awesome. Thank you. Quick question for you, Andrei, if that's okay. You've obviously rolled out your new comp plan, and it's gone out to the team. Tell us about how that's been received by the wider team and the sales reps themselves.
I'd say one word which makes you feel like if your comp plan is a success when you roll it out and communicate on it, is the word fair. That was really what came out of it. And if you can have kind of like a compromise on the fact that your sales rep think it's fair, your whole C-level think it's fair, that's probably something. It means that you've done something right. I mean, the reality in sales is that how often people and there is. And let me be kind of like true here. There is always a feeling in sales that sometimes it's unfair. Like this deal that came in, which is like ready to buy more or less. Marketing has done everything, and it's given to this sales rep. So there will always be a bit of unfairness, but I've always been a big advocate of trying to make things as fair as possible in sales. I always say to my team, I owe you this, whether it be in the processes we put in place, the comp plan we're going to roll out, anything. We're going to try and be it as fair as possible, and that was kind of like the outcome.
Yeah. And Marcus, question for you on your scout group. Yeah, you can probably tell I like that phrase. I think it's fantastic. What, in your experience, how long should you be working with that scout group and taking them in before you hire more locally?
Yeah, I think it depends on kind of what business you're operating in. I usually do 2 things. It's either we're on track to do about 80% to target, because we can usually work on optimizing that extra 20%. 80%, obviously, in relation to a rep's target, can sometimes be the company's target. The other one is if you've really refined your playbooks and you've really refined your kind of procession line sale, you usually just look at, have you been able to optimize your North Star metric? So that's either volume of opportunity within a calendar month, or dollar per opportunity, something of that nature. What that should then lead to kind of a clear understanding of that first beachhead, and then you kind of just get that team and you move them again. So they could be operating in Nordics for 3 months or 6 months. I think it's all just a case of when do you feel that it's time to invest behind them.
Yeah, brilliant. That's awesome. Guys, thank you very much for joining us and contributing to the event today. I'm going to ask you to leave the stage so we can get the other speakers up. Thank you very much. To the other speakers, please join the stage.
I'm back.
Lauren, can you hear me though? That's the test. Can you hear me?
Could hear you this time. It was you. I have no idea what happened before.
I didn't take it personally, don't worry, but I'm glad you can hear me. So while we're talking, Lauren, I'll come to you. Same question to you. One key takeaway from one of the other speakers today for us, please.
I think it has to be the end with David. Just absolutely no compromise. I actually really like that. I might be just taking that. I know that wasn't part of your presentation, but really like that.
Nice. Go on then, David, your turn.
I think I like just listening to the regional expansion stuff. I think you had some pretty good ideas on just being narrow in your focus but running fast. I think that was really good stuff. I think it resonates with me really, because I'm big on like following gravity. I don't want to follow the rules and do what everyone else does, because that's why everyone's in the same pace, right? You want to go faster and you want to go in the right direction where the opportunity is, and I think that resonated with me really. Lean into the gravity and run harder than faster than anyone else and go kill it. I liked it.
Nice. Thank you. Matt?
A number of things really. First of all, comp plans are incredibly important to organizations. They drive behavior, and if you get them wrong, you've really screwed up your organization. So make sure they're right is a simple answer. And then, hiring without a shadow of a doubt is, every single one's $1 million decision. So why would you compromise? It's blatantly obvious that you don't want to do that. So hire hard is probably a big takeaway from everybody.
Okay, brilliant. And I'm just, if it's okay, we've probably only got a minute or two, Lauren, but I just want to fire this question back at you. I was going to ask you at the end of your talk, but you couldn't hear me, everyone else could. You talked about those 4 things, so strategy, technology, methodologies, and people. If you could pick, take the strategy off for a minute, because probably it overpins everything. If you could pick that technology over people, people over technologies, methodologies over technology, just look at those 3. Is there one that you say is front and center of everything that you would always lean to as the priority?
Yeah, I mean, I think it has to be people. I actually talked about this with a ebook with James, but it's that like skill versus will. I think, just that innate ability to kind of join a sales organization. And, I think it has to be the people, and has to be everything that you build behind it, the coaching, et cetera. So yeah, it's definitely the people.
Yeah. It's really, we've got a consistent opinion there, which is that, you can have all the sales tech in the world, all the methodologies in the world, but ultimately, if you've got the wrong people, it ain't going to work. And I'm glad to hear that despite the sales technology landscape becoming more and more invested in and important than everybody talking about it, we're still very, very clear that the people is the key component. So great to hear. James, I think we're pretty much done for the day, so I'll hand over to you to wrap up if that's okay. And guys, thank you very much for your talks, but also your contribution as well.
Yeah, thank you everybody, and thanks for joining today's session. This was an absolute megastar lineup of speakers, and there's a lot of curation in the background to ensure that we can get best of breed. But if you've been sitting there like, oh, actually, I could get up there in 7 minutes, do feel free to DM me, and I'm happy to field your interest. Just a heads up that we are going to pull together our annual conference, SaaS Growth, which is a full-day event on the 7th of July, and we'll be featuring some of today's speakers. So just keep an eye out for that, because the details will come about. But really, I just want to say thank you for Owen for co-hosting, and to each of the speakers to putting in the time and effort it takes to get something into 7 minutes. That's actually the challenge. The idea that you rock up and do a 7 minutes, maybe when you're talking buckets like David was, it doesn't require that much prep. but generally there's a lot of prep that goes into these. So I really appreciate everyone's efforts and contribution to this. And then really just to wrap up, a shout out to the sponsors naturally that allow me to continue promoting this. So shout out to SalesLoft, Mindtickle, Barrison, Aircall, Venetrix, Cognism, Air Marketing, SalesWorks and Sales Psyche, and also Cognism. So thank you again. We've given you back 2 minutes. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon. Happy St. Patrick's Day. And if you get a chance to have a Guinness, good luck. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Cheers.